I was 20, just finishing my junior year of college, and eager to land an internship that would make my resume look impressive.
The financial services firm downtown wasn't glamorous, mostly spreadsheets, reports, and endless data entry. But it paid well enough, and I thought it would be a quiet, safe experience. At first, everything seemed normal. The office buzzed with the soft hum of computers, printers, and muted conversations. There were 7 other interns scattered across a row of cubicles. Most were friendly, joking, and chatting over lunch breaks. Then there was Alex. Alex was unusual. He was tall, unnaturally thin with pale skin that made him look almost ghost-like under the fluorescent lights. His hair was dark, messy like he hadn't touched a comb in days. But it wasn't just his appearance that unnerved me, it was how he moved, how he watched. At first I tried to brush it off. Maybe he was just shy, socially awkward, but I noticed things that didn't add up. He never joined group chats, he rarely spoke to anyone, but somehow he always knew what I was doing. Sometimes I'd glance at my computer screen and catch him staring from across the cubicles. Not casually, intently, like he could see through the monitor into my very thoughts. Then the little incident started. One afternoon I was printing a stack of reports when I felt a presence behind me. I turned and Alex was leaning casually against the cubicle wall. His grin stretched too wide, teeth sharp in the office light. "Working hard or hardly working, Ronnie?" His voice was soft, almost melodic, but something about it made my stomach tighten. I forced a smile. "Just finishing this batch." He didn't leave. He lingered, tilting his head, watching me, silent except for the faint tapping of his fingers on the cubicle edge. Days passed, and the feeling of being watched grew heavier. Every time I moved, I felt his gaze like shadows twisting around me. Emails went missing from my inbox, my files were slightly rearranged. Small things, but enough to make me paranoid. One evening, I was the last one in the office, typing away. The hallway outside was silent. My phone buzzed. It was an unknown number. Curiosity got the better of me. I answered. Silence. Then his voice. Clear, loud, closer than it should have been. "The tide's coming in. Pull your boat out of the water." The line went dead. I dropped the phone, heart hammering. My number had never been shared. Not with co-workers, not even friends. The next week, Alex was fired. Officially, it was for ignoring work assignments and showing disruptive behavior. Relief flooded me, but it didn't last. A few nights later, I woke to the sound of footsteps outside my window. My apartment was on the 2nd floor, so I assumed it was someone on the street. But the shadows didn't match the streetlights. I leaned closer, heart pounding, and froze. A figure was standing there, tall, thin, the unmistakable outline of Alex. He didn't move, didn't blink, just stared. And then, the laugh. It was low, ragged, almost inhuman. Echoing, curling around the trees outside, lingering long after he vanished. I never saw him again, not in the office, not on the street. But I can't forget that grin, the way he watched, the voice echoing in my head. Some nights when I'm alone, I swear I hear the soft tap of fingers on a desk or a shadow leaning just outside my vision, watching, waiting. Some people think he was just a weird coworker. Maybe. But deep down, I know what I felt wasn't normal, and I know I wasn't the only one he ever chose. It was my first week at the new apartment building, a sleek, modern high-rise downtown. The lobby smelled faintly of polished wood and fresh paint, and the elevator gleamed like a mirror. I had just moved in, and exhausted from carrying boxes, I decided to take the elevator instead of the stairs. At first, it seemed normal. I pressed the button for my floor, the 18th, and the doors slid shut with a quiet mechanical hum. The ride started smooth, but when the elevator reached the 12th floor, the lights flickered, just for a second, then back to normal. I shrugged, maybe a power fluctuation. Then the numbers stopped counting. The elevator read 12 for several long moments. I assumed it was slow until the lights went out completely. Panic didn't hit immediately. I stood in the darkness, pressing the emergency button, listening to the soft mechanical whir of the elevator attempting to move. But instead of moving, a soft, almost imperceptible whisper echoed in the shaft. "Don't move." I froze. My heart thumped. The air felt heavy, thick. My phone had no signal. I tried the emergency button again repeatedly, but the elevator stayed still, suspended somewhere between reality and something else. Then faintly at first I heard it. Footsteps. Slow dragging, like someone pacing behind the metal walls. I strained my ears, gripping the handrail. A voice, low and raspy, murmured, "You shouldn't be here." I spun around, expecting someone to emerge from the shadows, but the elevator was empty. The air smelled wrong, like burnt iron and wet soil, like a grave. Minutes or hours passed. Time lost meaning. The numbers on the panel blinked erratically. 12, 7, 19, 0, 13. There was no pattern, no logic. Only the soft whispers growing louder, more insistent. I tried to scream, but my voice seemed muffled, swallowed by the steel walls. I pressed random buttons in desperation. One of them lit up. Floor 66. The building only had 25 floors. The doors slid open. I stepped out, and everything was wrong. The hall stretched endlessly in both directions, impossibly long. Dim, flickering lights cast shadows that twisted into shapes I couldn't recognize. The carpet, once blue in the lobby, was a dull, rotting gray. And the air, it smelled of decay. I called out. My voice echoed unnaturally, coming back to me warped, distorted, layered with 1,000 whispers. And then I saw movement. Figures, thin, faceless, their bodies elongated, drifting along the hall. They didn't walk, they glided, their limbs bending at impossible angles. And they were looking straight at me, though they had no eyes. I ran back to the elevator, fumbling with the buttons, the doors shut, barely in time. The ride down was fast, too fast. The numbers spun wildly past floors that didn't exist. I heard whispers, cries, and then laughter, a chorus of inhuman voices echoing in the shaft. When the doors finally opened, I was back in the lobby. Everything looked normal. The smell of polished wood, the scent of fresh paint, people waiting for the elevator, talking on their phones, unaware of what I had just experienced. I didn't tell anyone. Who would believe me? But some nights, when I'm alone in my apartment, I swear I can hear the soft hum of the elevator. And sometimes, If I press the button for my floor just out of curiosity, I see the numbers blink in impossible sequences, and I hear the same low voice whisper, "Next time. Don't get off." It was late October when a group of friends and I decided to rent a cabin deep in the mountains, far from cell service and civilization. The road there had been narrow, twisting through dense pine forests, and a thick fog had started to roll in by the time we arrived. The cabin looked quaint from the outside. Wood panels darkened by age, smoke curling lazily from the chimney, and the faint scent of pine sap in the air. But something felt off, like the forest itself was holding its breath. We shrugged it off as nerves and settled in. That first night we sat by the fireplace, laughing and drinking. Outside, the fog thickened, wrapping the cabin in a ghostly white cocoon. Around midnight, the power went out. Not unusual in remote areas, we thought. I lit a few candles, their flames flickering nervously in the drafts. Then we heard it, a faint tapping at the window. We froze, listening. Tap, tap, tap. Slow, deliberate. Probably just a branch, someone whispered. But the tapping didn't stop. It moved, like it was walking around the cabin. We could hear it circling, stopping at each window, tapping again. We tried to ignore it. We told ourselves it was the wind. Until a shadow appeared in the fog outside. It was tall, impossibly thin, with limbs that bent unnaturally. Its face was hidden beneath the mist, but we could feel its gaze. Piercing, watching, waiting. One of my friends, Mark, laughed nervously. "It's probably a prank. Who's messing with us?" But no one had come near the cabin. We were completely isolated. The temperature dropped suddenly. Our breath became visible, misting in the candlelight. And then the whispers started. Soft, almost human at first, murmuring from the fog. "You shouldn't be here." The words made the hairs on my neck stand on end, and then knocking from inside the cabin. Not the windows, inside, the walls, the floorboards, something moving through the very structure of the cabin. Panic set in. We grabbed flashlights and checked every room. Nothing. Just empty rooms and the flickering shadows of candlelight. Then the fog seemed to press against the windows, forming shapes. Faces. Dozens of them pressed against the glass, staring in. They didn't move their lips, but we could hear their whispers growing louder, chanting in unison, "Leave, leave, leave." We decided to leave immediately. Cars were parked outside, but the fog had thickened so much that we couldn't see even 10 feet ahead. We stumbled down the path, tripping over roots, guided only by the weak flashlight beams. Behind us, the whispers followed. The shadows in the fog seemed to chase us, merging, twisting, moving faster than our eyes could track. When we finally reached the main road, the fog vanished as if it had never been. Streetlights illuminated the familiar landscape. Our hearts were racing, our breaths ragged, and yet we realized one horrifying truth. The cabin was gone. Completely gone. No road, no clearing, nothing. Just endless forest stretching in every direction. None of us spoke of that night again. But sometimes when the fog rolls in during October, I swear I can hear faint tapping at my window. soft whispers and a shadow in the mist, waiting